All right, let's move straight to our next conversation. Terrorism remains a persistent threat in Nigeria's northeast, and recent developments have reignited fears of renewed insurgency. Governor Babagana Zulum of Borno State has expressed deep concern over fresh attacks by Boko Haram, warning that the state is once again losing ground to insurgents. Zulum said the security situation is deteriorating in parts of the state, threatening years of progress and stability. His warning underscores the urgent need for renewed military focus in the region. Biko, Governor Babagana Zulum, is showing concern, talking about the upsurge in Boko Haram attacks, saying Borno State is losing ground. Biko, should we be worried?
We should be, because we made significant gains. Before the current CDS left that place as theater commander, Operation Lafia Dole, and then he became commander of the infantry corps of the Nigerian Army. Of course, you know that the infantry corps are the overwhelming majority of the army. So he did a good job there. In fact, this idea of surrendering by Boko Haram fighters was what he promoted, and really encouraged. Hundreds of thousands of those boys were surrendering. And then, let me not say hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands. Okay. Then he left the scene. Other people had the chance to take over. What I've always warned against is this idea of believing that the enemy has been defeated. I always say it here, that stop gloating that the enemy has been defeated, because the enemy still retains the capacity to surprise us when we least expect it. No point boasting, oh, we have defeated them. There's no such thing as technical defeat. If you've defeated the enemy, you've defeated the enemy. When Sri Lanka defeated Tamil Tigers, after about 25 years of fighting, they defeated them to the last man.
To the last man.
They defeated them to the last man. And from that day, you will never hear that Tamil Tigers struck anywhere else. That was why former President Obasanjo was even suggesting that we should go and study how the Tamil, Sri Lanka did it. What we always say, oh, you cannot defeat an insurgency. Absolute rubbish, absolute lie. We've seen countries that defeated insurgency. Algeria, I was arguing with a retired soldier. He came here to do a program, and he was saying it while on air. I waited for him to finish. I said, oh God, but that's not true, sir. That no insurgency, there's no record of insurgency defeated anywhere. I said, you are not saying the truth, sir. And I gave him an example. What happened in Algeria? They were crushed. They won an election, but the Islamic movement won an election because they didn't allow them to take power. They resorted to terrorism. They were beheading journalists and other people. But the Algerian army crushed them. That's an example. And then the Sri Lankan example, I told him. And then he agreed with me. He shook my hand and walked away. We are in the business of facts, learning from one another. So he was happy to learn from me, despite being a retired soldier. But probably the history of warfare, it still needs to
brush up on that.
No, so going back to what we are saying, we had been gloating that the enemy had been defeated. And I always said, look, let's moderate our joy at the defeat of the enemy, because they still retain that
elements of surprise.
And 3 local governments, as we speak, Boko Haram has been extremely active in 3 local governments. Some people don't like it when you say it, but we are seeing it now. Guzamala local government have been saying it. no soldier on ground. That's the local government of the Speaker of Borno State House of Assembly. He's watching me. He knows I'm saying the truth. I've been repeating this thing. I was in the palace of the Shehu of Borno one day when the VP was in attendance and he was mentioning those places. That these boys are still there. They are not allowing our people to go to farm. The truth is by nature self-evident. The truth is what we must promote at all times.
Exactly.
Now we are seeing these guys because we didn't crush them. If we crush them, they will not be able to raise a hand. Because we had not crushed them, because they still occupy some places. You talk about the Timbuktu Triangle, for example. Boko Haram remains active there. Boko Haram remains active on the fringes of the Lake Chad. That is actually the home of ISWAP.
Okay.
Because there are two factions of Boko Haram. The other faction is the Shekau faction. That one is what is actually called Boko Haram. Till today, in places like Goza, the Mandara Mountains, they are still there. Occasionally, they will come down, kill people. Like they kill wedding guests the other day. They bomb people, kill people. Sometimes they will come down, raid farmers, loot their crops, and go back to the Mandara Mountains. So, as long as the enemy has not been crushed
completely,
let's not hear anything like technical defeat, because this is not boxing where you can say somebody was defeated by technical knockout.
Stoppage or no.
TKO. No. In this kind of warfare, it does not exist. Now, in Damboa local government, Boko Haram attacked the military base. This was something that they had not done in a long time. They launched the attack at 11 p.m. Remained there till 5 a.m.
Really?
Yes. Long battle, but they didn't give up. They continued to fight. And we lost troops. We lost officers. We lost men. That's why I always say, look, we have not defeated the enemy. We may have weakened them, but the enemy that you have weakened still retains the capacity to surprise you from time to time.
Exactly.
They may not have the number of gun trucks that they used to have
back then.
Because the Tucanos, once they see a gun truck, they will come for it.
Exactly.
But it doesn't mean that the threats have been obliterated.
Okay.
This is the example that the governor is worried about. For a long time, this governor had not complained about these people, because everybody was happy that, in fact, he was telling me the other day that, we had good harvests last year. Because many people were able to go to their farms. Now they are dislodging people again. Okay. See, the fact that there is rampant unemployment, rampant poverty, means that these boys will always be able to recruit people.
Okay.
Have you seen where Boko Haram was sharing rice to people? You've not seen videos in the Lake Chad area. And as they were giving them rice, they were giving them cash. This is not fiction. I can provide evidence. As they were giving rice, they were giving cash. In those areas, they want the people to remain loyal to them. Pay us taxes, we will guarantee you security, we will not kill you. And that way, when they promote that kind of notion, they are telling the people that, look, you don't need to trust your government. Government will not do anything better than this for you. As long as we do not attack their recruitment source,
they would always have a breeding ground.
But we must first crush them.
Exactly.
I always demand that we crush them, and it is possible. But if we have the notion that our insurgency has never been defeated anywhere, these boys will not go.
Okay.
They will not go.
All right. Mayor, the governor also said something. He said that the Northeast is not receiving the utmost attention when it comes to security, utmost security attention required. I mean, what is responsible? Are we getting distracted or what?
Yes, we are getting distracted. And the reason is simple. The security forces dropped the ball. You know, when they did very well in the Northeast, and at the time, they were able to weaken the enemy. But they made a fundamental error, like you said, when you assume that these people no longer constitute a threat. That's a big mistake. Because the kind of battle that you are into is not a conventional battle. You are fighting people who can retreat, who can stay like that for a long time and then regroup and then launch attack. That is usually the way of terror groups. Okay. So the time that they were weakened and you now drop the ball and put your attention elsewhere, you give them time to be able to regroup. That is what is happening now in the Northeast. Because by the time we were able to weaken Boko Haram, the security forces took their attention elsewhere to the Northwest, where banditry was prevalent, and they needed to move from one state to another. Almost all the states, apart from Kano, was involved in one form of banditry and security challenges. So they got occupied by those security challenges and then allowed the Boko Haram forces in the Northeast to regroup. So what the governor is trying to say is that the security forces made that fundamental error. They should have been able to sustain, because in warfare, you not only attack, defeat, but you must hold that ground.
Exactly, hold the ground, sure.
Yeah, you have conquered. If you don't do that, if you leave it, the person you have conquered will go back and come back and occupy the place.
Okay, the governor also talked about the border situation, the Borno's border with Chad, Cameroon.
That is the problem.
Niger.
That is what I say.
What should we as a government be doing when it comes to porous border?
At the time, all the countries within that axis formed a joint security force, a patrol force that was working. And I'm not a military man, but I don't agree with the strategy that we use. I've said this severally. And the reason is that it's the same system, it is the same strategy that we are using in the Northwest against bandits. When you isolate them in one country or in one state, it's a mistake, because when they believe that that place is too difficult for them or they are losing ground, they will just move elsewhere and try to go and regroup there. So the problem we have is that the countries within that Chad, Niger, and Nigeria, and Cameroon must be able to sit together, do what we were doing before. At the time they introduced that, at the height of that fight against Boko Haram, where they have this joint security patrol force that can work in all the countries at the same time. So that when you are fighting them in Nigeria, they won't move to Niger. They must be able to, the Niger people, everybody must have the same level of commitment to be able to hold each ground in those states. That is the only way you can make things difficult for them. But if Niger, for example, allow them to move from Nigeria to Niger, and you think that, oh, you have weakened them or you have defeated them, and then they move back from Niger to Nigeria, it won't work. This same goes for Cameroon, same goes for Chad. So there must be need to have a joint security network, that will be able to attack these people at the same time. The engagement must be at the same time by all these countries.
The fortunate thing about that is, once Niger Republic broke out of ECOWAS, they stopped having anything to do with us militarily. So the multinational joint task force that we were involved in, Niger is no longer interested, because this was an initiative of ECOWAS. So they are not interested anymore. We don't have joint patrols with them anymore. They just want to be on their own. And unfortunately for us, of all those three countries, it is Niger that has the most extensive border with Nigeria. Their borders with Nigeria begins from Kebbi in the northwest to Yobe in the northeast. That's about six states involved. And in the northeast, we have the shared border with us in Yobe, in Borno as well. Extensive borders. So if we do not have military patrol with them, then it's a problem, because Chad is the headquarters of the multinational joint task force in Jamena. But always under the command of a Nigerian general. That was the agreement. But Chad has a very small border with Nigeria. The land area is very small, unlike Niger, that is really extensive. But
some days ago, the DHQ denied that Niger is not withdrawing from the MNJTF.
That was what the Chief of Air Staff said. The Chief of Air Staff said it is a problem now because they are refusing to work with us. And it was well reported when he said that. So how many of those things that they used to do with us when we were happy together in ECOWAS, how many of those things are they doing now? They're happy because they felt that the government in Niger felt that Nigeria was a driving force, even in pushing them to take the decision to leave ECOWAS. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Because our president was chairman of ECOWAS, and at a point we were even mooting the idea of military action to restore President Badoum. Yes, and it caused so much bad blood between both countries. So Nigerians living in those border communities were very angry. They felt, these are our brothers. Why do we want to go? Some of them share, have Nigerian ancestry over there. You know, that why are we threatening them with war? We pulled back from that idea of going to war to restore Badoum to power. But the damage had been done. Invariably, they decided that they were even going to leave ECOWAS, and they've left ECOWAS. Unfortunately, Niger, as I've said many times, is a semi-failed country. Many of its territories are not manned by security. When you are chasing Boko Haram in Nigeria, they move into Niger Republic and they stay there. And you can't go and launch military attack inside another country. No, that's unlawful.
Absolutely.
You can't go beyond a certain distance into another country. So we pulled back, and they are resident there. Our people in Yobe, in Gaydam, for example, many times these guys will come from Nigeria, will come and slaughter people in Gaydam. They will come and slaughter people in Babagana, also in Yobe State. Because those are along the corridor, the border corridor.
All right, then. All right, we need to go on this quick break. And when we return, the conversation continues. Don't go anywhere. Still journalist time.